All right, welcome back to A Thousand Movies Before You Die. And today we've got an interesting comparison video for you. Tobe, take it away.
We're comparing Leave Her to Heaven and Detour, two 1945 film noirs. Both, there's some dispute whether Leave Her to Heaven is a film noir because it's color, which I think is really weird. I think I've never had a black. What about you? Have you ever had like a black and white thing where it has to be black and white to be a film noir? I've never heard that, but I hear that a lot on the videos that I sort of watched to prepare for this. That came up a lot where there's a
Really?
dispute whether or not it's a film noir because it's in color. To me, it might be not a film noir because it does come across like a melodrama. Like it really has
Yeah.
that Douglas Sirk feel to it almost. But yeah, it's definitely a film noir once you get into her character.
Yeah,
And
that to me is the biggest determinant is it's the storyline, it's the themes, it's not
yes, yeah,
whether it was colorized or not. You
yes,
know.
yeah. I think there probably should be, and I try to keep it as like my definition, I want it as loose as possible so we can talk about as many films as
Yeah.
possible. But I think there should be at least a murder, at least a crime, probably a murder,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
At least be at
Sure.
least be that, right? Because if there's no crime, okay, maybe you got a
Yeah.
case that this is not a film noir. Whereas in both these cases, and then Detour is sort of a real budget B movie, right? And it's definitely black and white. And so these two compare really well, I find. They really
Yeah.
are so different and such great representations of great femme fatales. Again, super different femme fatales and different feels and everything, but you get the same sort of um, themes of sort of mental mental illness, I guess, throughout the
And I think
arrangement.
what's really great too about this comparison is they both came out the same year.
Yes, which I
So
didn't know until you just illuminated that to me.
yeah,
So,
1945. So we're talking post-war or towards the end of the war
yes,
anyway.
yeah,
And so yeah, and really it's in the heart of the noir era in many ways.
yeah, exactly. It is. It's. I mean, I think what is it, 41 or 42? You have double indemnity.
44.
Um, 44. You have that,
Yeah.
and then you have what's the other one? The Stranger on the Third Floor. I think that is early 40s as well. So you're just at the beginning of this. Maltese Falcon, I think, is coming out around that time.
Yep.
So it's again, these were not consciously made as film noirs. None of these films were consciously
No, they were
made as
just
noirs because
hard-boiled crime dramas or
exactly. And I think that when they were making Detour, they were making a cheap crime movie. And when they
Mhm.
were making Leave Her to Heaven, I don't think that the idea of a film noir, even had that been around, they would not have been consciously making that. I think they were making a psychological drama about, a pretty twisted and deranged woman.
Mhm.
Um, and, it's just after the fact, we have this concept of a femme fatale, and she just fits it really well,
Yes.
that character. And what I like about these two they're really different women. You have Anne Savage as Vera in Detour. So
Mhm.
she showed up on the set, and apparently, they had put her in nice makeup and they had done her hair, and the director was like, "Well, this, no, Vera has to look like, quote, she stepped off the dirtiest freight train, in the Midwest." So yeah, they completely sort of, I think they rub cold cream through her hair to make it look greasy and
Oh.
dirty, and she just looks beat up. And then she's sick too throughout the film. Like she has some sort of, I think it's tuberculosis or something. So
Mhm.
she is one, dilapidated woman, just sort of on the back end of or the just the bottom end of her life. And obviously she's hitchhiking. She's picked up by also people sort of drifting through the lower end of socioeconomic life. And
Yep.
it's the exact opposite of Leave Her to Heaven, where they are wealthy. And Ellen is, wealthy, well put together, well spoken. They're completely different. And yet it's Ellen who has the much more evil body count.
Yeah.
She kills a crippled boy. She watches him drown to death, and then she kills her unborn baby. Like she's really nasty.
Yeah.
it's her nastiness is right there. It's right, it's in your face. And with Ellen, it's much more subversive. It's much more under the surface. Her husband, played by Cornell Wilde, he has no idea what he's getting into. And yeah, it's just they couldn't be more different, right?
Yeah,
And they're both really great examples of pretty nasty, among the nastiest of the femme fatales, yet completely different.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a very flexible trope. You can
Yes, exactly.
use it in many different ways.
Yeah,
That's
and I
great.
think, I mean, what are some of those tropes? I think she has to use her femininity to corrupt
Hmm.
or fool or somehow dominate, a man. And both of
Hmm.
that, in both these cases, you have Eddie Haskell, who is sort of this sad dupe in Detour. He's just driving like his girlfriend sort of dumps him, so he's
Oh,
pretty
don't
pathetic.
you mean Al? Eddie
Is it Al?
Haskell's
Al?
Eddie
Oh, I think it's
Haskell's
the guy
the
he kills, right?
that's Haskell's the guy he impersonates.
That's right. So he's impersonating him. So
Hmm.
Eddie Haskell he's impersonating, and he's Al to start with, right?
Yes,
Okay.
he is. Yeah.
So Al is, he's yeah,
He must have done a good impersonation. He fooled you.
he's doing that's right. I would have handed over my money if I was his
Yeah.
dad. The way that gets set up.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's the other thing, she just keeps taking it one step further and further and just dominates him completely. Vera does. And he's just sort of stuck because she's holding this murder over his head and he feels trapped. Whereas and he's under no illusions what she's like. He just wants to get away from her and he can't. Whereas um, Ellen,
Mm.
her husband played by Cornell Wilde, he has no idea. Like he thinks he's living this with this ideal woman who just wants to be around him all the time, and yet, she's killed his brother, his crippled brother, and for the crime of just spend like, she wants him all to herself. Like
Yeah.
that's it. And her thing that they say in the movie all the time is she loves too much. It's like she's almost like that feminine ideal, being loving has been dialed into a really sort of dark realm.
Hmm.
And, it's hinted at that this relationship started with her father, that there's some, daddy-daughter issues there. She's
Yeah.
pretty nasty to her mom. And then she frames her sister for her own death, I believe it is, at the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
she tries to like get revenge from the grave. Like she's really a piece of work.
Yeah.
She's really one of the worst, but does it all behind this facade of genteel, beautiful colors too, which is really great about the film.
Yeah.
You're lulled into this. You totally understand where he's coming from, and I think a good film noir, you do kind of feel like, like Memento, you do
Hmm.
feel like the main character.
Yep.
You're feeling this ideal setting, and then there's a scene where she's they're spreading the ashes of the father, and she just looks insane the way she's riding her horse, and the rest of the family is looking at her like, and the film never says anything explicitly,
Yeah.
but you can tell there's something really off about her, but you don't know why. It's very unsettling, and he's kind of watching her too. So
Yep.
it's really well done. And both films, they do that. They sort of crank up the oddity of these characters as the film rolls on, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and they're I think the other half of the coin with a femme fatale is you got to have the leading man who is,
Yes.
in trouble, like
Yeah.
Al slash Eddie Haskell in
And
Detour.
these two are actually more similar because they are both idiots. Like they
Yeah.
really are
Yep.
in their own way. They're very different in that Cornell Wilde, his character is he's very he's trying to I guess he's kind of floating like he's an author. That's right. He's a writer, and so he's successful as opposed to Al, who's not.
Yeah.
He's just been dumped by his girlfriend, and he's trying to drive across the country to meet up with her, and so he's sort of at the end of his rung. Yet
Hmm.
they're both like he just makes decisions, that you think, wow, why would you do that? Like taking on the identity of the dead man. He doesn't actually do much wrong, he didn't kill Eddie Haskell. The guy
No,
just
just
dies on him in the
accident. Well,
car, right?
yeah, it just whether he died of a heart attack or hitting his head, it was
Yes.
all out of his hands. It wasn't his.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And then he just makes, and that's another thing I like about film noir is often like it's the decisions, but the decisions aren't that horrible. But as the audience, you can kind of see that, no, I don't know.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the right decision if you should now drive the car with this dead man, right? Or
yeah,
actually, yeah, he gets rid of the body. You can just see it all going wrong for him. But
yeah.
you can see how he might, he might think that. And the same with the other character, right? This beautiful woman, Ellen, is this really lovely woman, and she's all of a sudden just super interested in him. Like she's just staring at him on the train, right? And you kind
Mhm.
of see him and his reaction is exactly the way you would react. Like he's kind of uncomfortable, he notices,
Yeah,
but he's a little intrigued, obviously, and you understand how he gets. I mean, the time frames are always ridiculous. This is happening within days, right? I mean,
yeah,
literally within a few hours they're in love, and then within days they're going to get married. But you kind of have to accept that, I think, in these old movies, that yeah, you're just going to get that complete time condensing. But other than that, it's pretty believable that he
yeah,
just kind of thinks, "Wow, yeah, this is amazing." She's very cold the way she dumps her fiance, who's played by Vincent Price,
yes,
and just basically is like, yeah, sorry, I'm in love now, and there's like no real apology at all, actually. It's very much like I deserve this and too bad for you,
yeah,
right? And then yeah, I think he's the lawyer at the end who's then prosecuting, he's either prosecuting or he's defending her sister. But it sort of morphs into a courtroom drama at the end, which is kind of cool as well. I love when there's courtroom drama in a movie. Very different from Detour, which is, all B movie, all
yeah,
just kinetic. It all happens very quickly. It's just one bad decision after the next, and then she ratchets it up by first they're going to sell the car, then she says no, no, no. She finds out the guy they killed, his dad is a millionaire, he's dying, so now this bonkers scheme where he's going to impersonate the son, right? And
yeah,
steal the money. It is all crazy,
yeah,
and she, you can tell that it's not very planned out, and she doesn't really care because she's on this death spiral. She knows
yeah,
she's going to die, and is just, yeah, just like pedal to the metal towards the wall, and Al is just hanging on for the
yeah,
ride, right?
yeah,
So yeah, it's yeah, I wonder which one I'd rather be, at the end of the day.
yeah,
Um, Maybe Cornell Wilde, because I think at the end he ends up with her sister,
yeah,
and yeah, I don't think he ends up going to jail at the end
yeah.
of it. I just, yeah, I
Well, the
don't.
code at that point required them to go to jail if they were criminals, right? That was part of
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
the code.
Yeah,
They
well, I
had to
guess Eddie
show.
would. I mean, Al would, because at the end he does. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
spoilers. He kills her,
yeah,
and he kills her in a really strange sort of way. She's on the phone, either calling the cops or once again threatening to call the cops, and he's just starts pulling. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. He
yeah,
starts pulling on the cord of the phone, and he's pulling it, and you see him like struggling, and then he opens the door after knocking, and she doesn't respond, and it turns out the cord was around her neck,
yeah, yeah.
and so he
Very
choked her to
convenient.
death. But it's very kinetic. It's very sort of
Yeah,
I don't know, visceral, as he's like pulling on this and choking her.
yeah,
But yeah, he's so yeah, he doesn't really even know that he's killing her. So even though he does kill her, he doesn't realize it. So even in that, he's not fully guilty. It's really just he's really guilty of extreme bad luck. And he even says that in his voiceover. He says something about you're just kind of going along and the cruel finger of fate can just like put
there's
it's
a
something about the cruel finger of fate right on you. And it's just the perfect film noir line, like you
yeah,
just a couple of bad, not even horrible decisions, but it's really the bad luck and not making the perfect decisions, and then
yeah,
weakness. It's usually bad luck and weakness.
yeah.
That's usually what these guys
Yeah,
are
it's
victims
usually
of.
and it's a compounding effect, right? It's
Yes.
one or two bad he has one or two elements of bad luck compounded with some
Yeah.
bad decision making, and it
Yeah.
makes it worse. And then there's something else that, there's almost this downward spiral that happens in a
Yeah.
lot of noir films where you can see there might have been an off ramp, but the
Yeah. Yes.
character, for good reason,
Yeah.
made certain choices. You may have disagree with them, but it's usually morally ambiguous
Yes.
reasoning. they do what they do,
Yeah.
and it ends up being, to their detriment, to the, they end up usually in jail by the end, if not dead.
Yeah. And they shouldn't, yeah, I think they shouldn't be the hero. Like if you're like,
No.
yeah, that guy was clearly the hero, then yeah, maybe you weren't watching a film noir.
Yeah.
And if it's like, oh, he was clearly the villain, also no, like generally speaking, I mean, in a good noir, even the villain is, has some redeemable
Yeah.
qualities, or you understand why he's doing what he's doing. There's that one with Robert Mitchum and Kirk Douglas, where Robert Mitchum gets out of jail and no, it's Burt Lancaster, and he's been like holding the fortune for him, but he's turned the fortune into like a nightclub and all this stuff. I can't remember the movie right now. And
Yeah.
Burt Lancaster is like, well, I want half of the nightclub, and he's like, well, no, like and you understand both characters. Like
Yeah.
you would understand that, well, yeah, I wouldn't want to give him half the nightclub. Like he just is supposed to get half the money. I turned it into the nightclub. But the other character, well, and I liked how you understand them both. And in a good noir, you do get them both. Like out of the past, you do understand why uh, Kirk Douglas's character is
Yeah.
pissed. Like $40,000 was stolen, and she tried to kill him. And so
Was that I Walk Alone?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so, yes. Where Burt Lancaster gets out of jail. That's right. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
And again, in most of, I mean, sometimes you do get a straight up villain. You get like a Lee Marvin's character,
Mm.
something like that, where they're just nasty, and then that's beautiful too. But usually, you're getting someone that you kind of understand.
Yes.
Even in Caged, which I want to do that one soon, which you get a really nasty guard played by Hope Emerson, but I was expecting actually way worse. Like today, she would be way worse. Like
Yeah.
she's not even that bad. And you
Yeah.
do kind of understand where she's coming from. Like she's not just completely despised character. It's
Yeah.
very rare that there's somebody on screen that you just really really hate. I mean, it does happen, and those are
Yeah.
fun too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But usually, a good film noir, I find you're just given a lot of ambiguous characters,
Yeah.
and you kind of understand. And one person that you've just been following around, and he's sort of falling backwards into one problem after the next,
Yeah.
and it's just fun to watch. It's like
It is.
it's like you don't want to be a part of that. You don't want that happening to you, but it's a lot of fun to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah. Living
And it's
vicariously through others. That's
yeah, and you have a beautiful woman to drag you through it, and that's basically the femme fatale, right? It's like
yeah.
the person who there's the treasure, there's the thing, the MacGuffin, but then there's the person who's gonna give you that extra kick towards it, the
Yeah.
the extra when you go, well, wait a minute, that's probably a bad idea. The femme fatale is there to just confuse you enough to
Yeah.
sort of make you go for that bad goal that gets us
Yes.
rolling into our story. So yeah, here we've got two of the best. I think we've got very different femme fatales. We've got very different films, and yet great examples of femme fatales. I
Yeah.
don't
And you'd
think you can make
recommend both of them.
absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, very different. Very different. But I think you're going to get a great film noir in either case.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, thanks for those of you watching. We hope you check out both of these films. And I love the fact we're focusing on some of the ones that are a little bit off the beaten path with film noir.
Yeah, exactly.
Specifically, it's kind of a fun exercise to unearth these gems that we want to make sure they're preserved and carried forward and watched by future generations because they are great, great films. So. All right. Thanks so much
All
for
right.
watching. We'll see you here next time on A Thousand Movies Before You Die.
Get busy watching or get busy dying.